Hi, welcome to my latest video. Today I'm going to film part 4 of my rear diff Haldex series. This is continuing on immediately from the end of part 3. Okay, so part 3, yesterday I dismantled a Gen 3 Haldex, and I was hoping to do the Gen 4 in the same video, but there was just too much footage. Okay, so I'm splitting it into part 3, part 4. Okay, so part 4 today, I'm going to be taking apart these two Generation 4 Haldexes. Okay, so they're slightly different to the Gen 3. In part 3, at the beginning of the video, I was looking at my new rear diff, and then I started to talk about the differences between these two Haldexes. Now, when I've got these taken apart as well, it'll be very easy to see what's different between them. But as well as talking about the differences between them, I spoke briefly about what actually is the Haldex, and I tried to kind of explain it by pointing and talking and waving my hands around. Okay, and I thought today I should have just used my whiteboard. You've all been messaging me saying, when's the next whiteboard lecture? We can't wait for the next long, boring whiteboard lecture. Okay, I don't know what it is about those, but you guys love them, all right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a diagram showing how a Haldex works, okay? And I'll also highlight the main differences between these two. Okay, if you want to skip the whiteboard part of this video, then I'll put a time at the bottom of this screen. But what I'm going to do before I start taking these apart is I'm just going to put my camera on the tripod. I'm going to rub out my mathematics that I did about 1.5 years ago as part of the LED headlight bulb theory lecture that I did. Okay, so my LED bulb video series, I filmed 2 videos and there's still about 3 or 4 to go. But the weather, well, not the weather, the light, the sun just started to set too late, basically, in the end. So I just thought I'll leave it to the autumn when it's dark again. Okay, so I will be carrying on with that. But this was the trigonometry and stuff I did to kind of work out how far away from the car I need to measure the lux with the light meter to make it equal lumens, basically, and it kind of worked. Okay, so if you want to know what all that's about, go and see LED bulb series, in particular. I think it's probably part 2, but it might be part 1. Best to watch part 1. I think part 1 has the theory, part 2 has the actual practical. So I'm going to rub that out. Let's get me a rubber. I'll tell you what, I'm going to put the camera on the tripod first, and I'll rub that out, and then I'm going to start drawing a diagram showing how the Haldex works inside. Okay, let's wipe all this off. Somebody's used permanent pan. That's Mrs. Pitt's drawing Pit Lane Kitty on top of the car. Right, let's get some wipes. Right, that doesn't want to seem to come off, which is strange because that's, I think, the yellow highlighter pen or dry white marker pen. Right, it'll have to do. Okay, I'm just going to do a quick diagram now to show how the Haldex works inside. Let's start off by drawing the car. Okay, so we've got our sort of front wheels, back wheels. So this is the rear. Okay, and that's the front. Okay, and the front wheels have the engine and the clutch and the gearbox, and inside the gearbox is the front differential, and out the other side of that front differential comes a shaft which goes into the power transfer unit. Okay, so PTU, and the PTU sends the drive off to the other wheel on the other side, and also sends it down the prop shaft towards the back of the car. Up near the back of the car we have the rear diff, which has the drive shafts to the two rear wheels. Okay, and that sort of has that input with the nose bearing and the pinion and then the crown wheel inside. Okay, before the drive goes into the rear diff, it goes through the Haldex. Okay, so it comes along and there's a sort of flange thing. Okay, and that bolts to the Haldex flange, or the cup, the input drive flange. Okay, so that kind of sits around this, and there's bolts that go through it, and that is sort of on the front of the Haldex unit, which I'm going to show quite large. Okay, and that kind of embeds itself in the front of the rear diff. Okay, there's a big hole in the front of the rear diff, and it kind of half buries itself in there. But inside this Haldex unit, there's a shaft that goes through, and that then connects to loads of plates. Okay, so sort of alternating plates. So every other plate is connected to the input shaft, and the other ones, the even plates, connected to the input, and the odd plates are connected to the output. Might be the other way around. Okay, but they're sandwiched. Okay, alternating in, out, in, out. Okay. Behind those plates, this is in the sort of clutch pack basket thing, there is a circular piston, which I'm just going to show as two kind of circular things there. Okay, so it's a sort of annular piston that gets pumped up with oil and pushes those plates together, and as those plates sandwich up, they start to rub against each other and transmit the drive to the rear wheels. What controls that piston movement? Okay, well, that is some Haldex fluid. It's not engine oil, and it's not a diff oil, gear oil. It's a special Haldex fluid, and at the bottom of the sort of Haldex unit is effectively a sump where the fluid kind of sits. Okay, inside there's not a kind of a tank or anything like that. It's just kind of in the casing, and that fluid, which we'll draw in, let's draw it in nice green colour. Okay, I mean, it's not actually green, it's kind of clear, but we'll draw it green. That fluid gets sucked up by the pump. Okay, and the head of the pump has a small gauze on it. Okay, so there is effectively two filters. Okay, there's a small filter on the pump, and then the main filter. The thing to remember is the main filter is after the pump, so the fluid is sort of sucked up into the pump with that kind of filtery thing on the input, because this fluid here is, you might have bits in it. You see, bits of metal, bits of sintered disc coating and all that kind of stuff. Okay, so this might be dirty. Consider it sort of dirty fluid here. And that gets sucked up into the pump and then pumped at pretty high pressure through the filter. Okay, so that's the proper filter. And then when it comes out of there, it goes to what's called the N393 valve. Okay, I will try and find the valve. Here it is. Okay, so this valve has an electromagnet inside it. There are two electrical connections there, and this piece here doesn't actually move. A lot of people think that bit kind of moves in and out. It's not. It's actually inside that. There's another shaft inside. There are three levels of holes on it. Okay, so there's holes sort of all the way around, but they're in 3 sort of bands. Okay, so that valve, if we draw that now, so let's sort of draw our kind of electromagnetic coil with the connections there. I think it's 12 volts, but it isn't the sort of thing that is just turned on and left on. It's pulsed, very high frequency. Okay, not sure what frequency, it's probably a few hundred times a second, maybe more. Okay, and the duration that it's on compared to off is varied. Okay, so it's a pulse width modulated system. So we have that kind of visible shaft thing with these holes on it. Okay, and 3 holes there. And this clean high pressure fluid is put in at the bottom one there, and then inside there's a sort of piston that's attached to that, which has got kind of rubber O-rings and things on it. Okay, so as that moves up when it's energized, it sends the fluid to the piston. Okay, so let's draw that goes up into our piston, and it pumps up the piston, that compresses the plates, and the drive starts to get transmitted to the rear wheels. At some point the valve turns off. Okay, either that or the piston gets fully pumped and can't pump anymore. Okay, but either through the valve turning off and the fluid kind of coming back, or it just sort of can't lock up anymore. But one way or the other, fluid will come back down here. So this goes sort of in, let's draw some arrows there, that goes that way, that way, that way. This is sort of bi-directional. Okay, so it pumps it up and then it kind of comes back. And the fluid that comes back comes out this top one here and goes back into the sump. Okay, so that's kind of it for a Gen 3. Okay, now there will be sort of safety relief valves and things like that, so if this all just gets too pumped up, it'll just vent off back into the sump. That is a Gen 3. That's how it works. Really simple. Okay, so you pump the fluid, filter it, and then you send it to the piston, or you let it drain back, but either way it ends up coming back to the sump. That's it. Nice and simple. There's a problem with this one though. When you want to send the fluid to the piston, it's basically the pressure of this pump that's going to be moving that piston on its own. Okay, it's got to slowly pump this together, squashing those plates, and that can take a bit of time, and there's also, to start with, just not that much pressure available. Okay, so it's really only when these plates start to kind of get squashed that, so it's only really when these plates get squashed together that the pressure will really start to build up. Wouldn't it be great if we had a sort of reservoir, high pressure fluid, some kind of pressure vessel which is pumped up, ready for action? Well, that's what the Gen 4 does. Okay, so the Gen 4 has an accumulator, which is really a piston, okay, and a very strong spring behind it. Okay, and that fluid from the pump, the filtered fluid here, gets pumped against that piston. Okay, so that when this valve here moves, there's a reservoir of pre-pressurized fluid which can shoot through there and lock those plates up really quickly. So there's a much quicker reaction time. Now, of course, if this continues to compress, at some point it vents off. So once the spring is compressed, the fluid escapes. Okay, so when this is charged and ready, that piston would be kind of here. The fluid will be coming in and just relieving the pressure back into the sump. But the spring has the energy stored in it, and then suddenly it goes for it, locks that piston. Well, maybe not locked, maybe it's half locked, but it's a very quick reaction time. So the power is then transmitted to the rear wheels much quicker. So what that means is if you're off-road and the wheels starting to slip, and the ECU, let's draw the ECU. So don't forget, all of this is computer controlled. Let's see if this red pen works. So there's an ECU here. Okay, and that basically tells the Haldex. Well, no, it tells this really. It's the electromagnet in there is controlled by the ECU. Now there's more to it than that. There are sensors, temperature, pressure, and things like that. If you've got one of these ODB2 readers, sometimes you can get at some of the data from your Haldex. You might be able to get the pressure, the temperature, the duty cycle of the solenoid valve, whether it's on or off, what percentage of power is being transmitted through to the rear wheels, that kind of thing. But that's the Gen 4. Very similar to the Gen 3. Very similar. It's just got this extra accumulator here. Okay, much quicker reacting than the Gen 3. So it is a superior device. I've taken apart the Gen 3 and now I'm going to take apart the Gen 4, both of them, okay, one at a time, and we'll compare the differences between the 3 and 4. Okay, so Gen 4 Haldex, this is the one with the thin flange here. I'm going to take this apart now and we'll see what's inside. So it all starts with this big nut here, 24mm socket. Probably need an impact gun to remove that, and then this should just pop off really. It might be a case of hitting down through there. Right, there's a bit of rust down in there, so I'm going to put some WD-40 on it. Okay, right, there we go. There is the flange, very similar to the Gen 3 flange. Let's hold them up. So this is the Gen 3. There is a difference. Okay, so this is longer on the Gen 3. Right. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is let's remove the electronics from here. Now, when I did the Gen 3, I managed to break the plug. I'll try and do this one without breaking it. I think that needs just pressing. It's difficult to tell. Maybe it needs lifting. Just lean it back. I think we need a screwdriver. Try. to get in at a bit of an angle. There we go. As I tipped that back, I heard it disconnect. There we go. So you grip that and just rock it back slightly. Okay, so gripping and turning it backwards like that, and that lifts that thing inside. That's how you disconnect them. Right, let's remove the control box now, the electronics, and that is I think a 4mm hex Allen key, pretty sure. Might be 5. Oh, I'm not sure. It's the same size as it needed for the pump and the filter. They're all 4mm. Right. Okay, there we go. Ah, now this is interesting. The Gen 4 doesn't have a pressure sensor. It just has the solenoid valve. So that is different. I knew the electronics inside were different, but I didn't realise it was physically different on the face that goes down here. So that on the Gen 3 there's another sensor here. So let's see if we can get this valve out. There we go. Okay, now I need to be very careful doing this one because I'm going to be reusing a lot of these parts. Okay, so I'm going to be reusing this. I'll inspect the two of them and pick the best one. The electronics on the other one, the connector's broken. Okay, so one of the sockets on it is broken, so this will be needed. And it's interesting that this spins actually. Apart from that, it all looks in good condition. I can see the metal piston inside, so it's not full of debris inside there. So parts that I'm going to be keeping, I do need to be a little bit careful that I protect. Okay, so I'm just going to put these just outside there for now so they don't get bashed around. Right, let's take the pump off. Okay, so that's this here. Now, the pump on the Gen 3 had a sort of black plastic cover on it. That's not plastic, that's metal. Okay, and it has this kind of nipply end bit here. Okay, so that's a quick way of telling the difference. If you're not sure if you've got a Gen 3 or a Gen 4, look at the pump and look at that. Okay, if it's got a kind of knobbly bit, it's a Gen 4. So let's remove this, and I'm really hoping that this pump comes out easily and I don't have to hammer it about. Okay, because I completely destroyed the housing. Now, interestingly, that is it's got little lines on the head there, which means they're genuine bolts. It's a genuine pump. Either that or somebody refitted with a cheap pump and put the old bolts back in. There's little telltale signs. Okay, so the bolts should have little lines on them. Right, let's have a look at this. Oh dear. This is the bit that I'm worried about. There's another little tiny bolt. Ah, what are these two? There's two little tiny bolts there. Very small, but I don't think they're actually holding the thing in. No, I think they're just holding the put that there. It's rolling off. Okay. I think it's just holding the motor body to the sort of compressor flange thing. See, I don't know where the joint is. Is it here? Or is it here? Or is it here? What I'll do is I'll get some WD-40 into that. It's absolutely vital that this pump comes out and comes out without any damage. So this is an interesting thing. The auto fault finder videos are very, very good, and the guy explains everything very well. But the one where he rebuilds the Gen 4 is 18 minutes long, and the pump removal is 55 seconds, including removing the bolts. He just removes the bolts and then sort of uses a scraper or something to kind of stick in and bop it out it comes. The Gen 3 pump took me about 2 hours to remove. Okay, so a lot of people complain that my videos are too long, I'm waffling on, I'm talking too much, they're just dragging on, they're really boring. Well, I'm showing it as it really is. Okay, the quick little how-to videos that are on YouTube, that's ideal world. Very, very short. They don't show all the problems that can occur in the real world. Okay, so that doesn't seem to want to budge, but I'm hoping if I soak it in WD-40 and somehow persuade it gently with a hammer or something, that it will come out of there. It must come out of there. I've got the new pump I want to fit, and I don't want to risk damage to this housing. This housing is the one that I want to use, really. Okay, I'm going to continue. Might have to come back to that pump later. Okay, so let's remove the filter cap. Okay, so as I mentioned in the last video when I did the Gen 3, the bolts should have lines on them. That does. And there should also be some numbers. Can't really see them on this one. Some casting numbers stamped in there, or not stamped, but just kind of in the where it's cast in the factory. Okay, if it doesn't have those numbers, it's probably not a genuine filter. Okay, the filter, the non-genuine filters have a spring in the top usually. Genuine don't. And at the bottom of the filter there is a pressure relief valve, which, oh look at that, that's moving, which probably doesn't actually relieve any pressure on the non-genuine ones. Okay, so that's come off, that's relatively clean. I think there's some numbers down in there. There's some marks here. I'm satisfied that that is genuine. Now I need to try and get this out. So I need my pick. Where's my pick? Right, so in an ideal world you'd just hook that and it would come out. But that ain't going to happen. There's quite a lot of white oxide here. Clean carefully around there without scratching it up too much. Okay, and then it is, well, let's just try that little thing, this hook thing, but this will usually break off, which it has. Okay, so what we don't want to do is hammer screwdriver down the side there. That'll damage the inner wall of the hole where there's a filter on this here. Okay, so let's try to push this in. Come on. Right, sometimes you have to make a hole with the pick and then stick something else in to work it out. It is moving, I can feel it moving. Right. Come on. It's moving. Right. There we go. Okay, so that's got a lot of sludge in there. Okay, it's not a filter, that's just a plastic cap. There is the filter. So let's try and use our pick to kind of hook this out somehow. Come on. Why won't that come out? There it is. Now, this will have a lot of Haldex fluid in it. Okay, so there we go, no spring, genuine filter, casting numbers, and some kind of pressure relief valve thing there that doesn't have a kind of casting line across it. Right, let's stick that in there to try and soak up some of that fluid. Okay, so there we go, there's the hole. The condition of the inner wall is good. There's a little bit of oxide there, but it's nice and smooth. The oil way is clear. Okay, so that's good actually, I'm pleased with that. That came out easier than I thought it would. Right. Okay, what's next? What I'm going to do now is just bash this downwards to pop the clutch basket out. I'm going to use a rubber mallet for this. It's just I'm just going to put that nut on a bit. Probably put it on the other way up actually, but it just it gives me something to hit, but it also prevents it just dropping and going completely through. Okay, so now I need to hold this. There we go. You see what I mean? The nut has caught it there, it hasn't come all the way through. Now take the nut off, and that comes out. Okay, now what's interesting is, as well as the clutch pack, the piston has also come out. Okay, normally that doesn't come out and stays in here, and you have to kind of give that a whack or carefully kind of pull it out somehow. Okay, but that's come through there. There's this sort of, I think they call it the crown of thorns or something like that. I would call that some kind of thrust washer or something. Okay, so there's the piston. Okay, and there's various sort of rings attached to that which should come off. They look like they're going to come off, yeah. Okay, there's a kind of like a set of roller bearings there. And I don't know if that comes... Yes, it does. That comes off as well. Okay. So I'm going to try and keep this together. I don't really want those roller bearings spilling out everywhere, because I need to reuse those. Right, put that back together. So that's the piston. We've got this kind of springy washer thing there. And before I attack this pump, I'm going to try and get the seal out. Okay, now I need to get this seal out without damaging the top and inner walls of this bit here. It's very thin metal, very thin. I also need to get this, there's a lot of fluid there, let's mop some of that up and get this thing apart. How does that come apart? think that comes out once this comes out. We'll look at that in a moment. Let's get this seal out. Right. Try and lever it up, but rest on the other side of the seal. Come on. Don't want to really lean on that metal. Okay, so that's some of it. And then the bearing has to come this way, so this seal must be removed. Come on. Come on. How does this come out? I'm going to grip it carefully. There we go. That's how you do it. Just reach in with something with a smooth back to it so it doesn't damage this edge, and just literally pull it upwards. Okay, right. So that's the seal. Get that wiped round. And now there's a circlip. Okay, so what you need is some straight circlip pliers, like these, internal as opposed to external, so i.e. when you grip that, they go together rather than pushing apart. And there are two little holes. There we go. Okay. There's the circlip. Now I probably need to keep that because I don't remember seeing one in the kit that I bought parts. So that circlip holds the bearing in. Okay, so to get that bearing out, we're going to turn this over. I'm going to use a socket, probably a 19mm socket, and bash it through. Let's have a look. So what I'll do, I'll put the 19mm socket on the wrong way. There we go, and that sort of sits in like that. Probably need to keep. There we go. Right, okay. Right, that worked. And there is the bearing. Okay, now I'll be replacing this. I've got a new one. That one doesn't look too bad, but there's a bit of sloppiness in that. Okay, I think that's a little bit worn, so that will be going in the bin. And clean that up. Right, this just seems to be Haldex fluid coming out everywhere. Get the pick, get this seal. There's another seal here, right? The big O-ring seal. Okay. I think we're dismantled as far as I can go without doing the pump. This accumulator I don't touch, alright, that does not come apart. There's a very, very powerful spring in there that is not to be dismantled. Right, so what am I going to do with this pump? This is the point at which this housing becomes usable or has to be thrown away. Depends on how easily this pump comes out. Right. What I'm going to try and do is try and get a grip on this. Let's see if I can turn it. Hey, it moved. Oh, good. Right, it moved. Be careful that I don't damage this. Right, let's hold that a bit further out. Look, it's moving. Come on. What I'm hoping I can do is just work that. If I put a bit more WD-40 on that, just work that out. Right, there is a little line starting to appear there as it's starting to come out. Take it nice and slow. Lots of WD-40. Come on. There it is. It's starting to come out. Come on. These wires, almost worth cutting this off actually, because this pump is not going to be reused. So let's cut this off. There we go. Yellow black, so that's genuine. I'll keep the connector, might even sell that. Might be useful later when I do my diff lock project. Okay, that's better now because I can actually turn the pump a bit more because the wires aren't fouling. Right, I've reached the point now where I can very carefully lever this. There we go. So what I'm doing is putting it where this reinforcing, where the threaded hole is basically. And there we go. So sort of worked it out and then carefully levered under there. And that has come out. Okay, so as we can see, there is a lot of sludgy rubbish here. Now you'll remember in my diagram earlier I said that the pump had a strainer on it, a little sort of filter thing. Okay, and the pump was on the dirty side of the filter, the main filter. So any swarf, dust, filings, general grime in the oil will get caught by this first before it gets to the main filter. So this is really where it's going to block up. In a minute I'll take that apart. I'm really pleased that this has come apart quite easily compared to the Gen 3. And in the pump hole here there's more of that sludge. Okay, so this is just a gloopiness. Now the Haldex fluid can form a bit of a sludginess when it cools down. There was actually a sort of, not a recall, but a kind of advisory to the Land Rover technicians to say that if they find sludgy mess inside the Haldex or in the Haldex fluid, it's not really a problem. It's not, it's normal basically. So there's no need to start replacing anything. Once the Haldex heats up and starts working, I think a lot of that sludgy stuff kind of melts away. But it's the filings, the swarf, the bits of the material that comes off the sintered discs, whatever that is, that's what causes the problem. Okay, so this needs a real good clean up. A real good clean up. And yeah, what I'll do is use some brake cleaner to kind of blast through all of the oil ways between the different chambers, make sure there's nothing in them. What's that? Something just fell out. Oh, that's a bit of that's a wiring, the grommet thing from the pump cable. There we go. That's the Gen 4 housing. Okay, what I'm going to do now is have a look at the pump and then take the clutch pack apart. Okay, so this has small Torx screws here. Now, you only need to take 2 of these out. Okay, so only these 2 need to be undone to kind of take that off and clean it. This one here just holds this metal plate and the kind of compressor part of the pump together. Okay, so this is an old pump, this will be thrown away. I've cut the cables off, but I'm going to remove these, just have a little look at what's under there and just see what we can do with this gauze thing. Now, this is the smallest possible Torx bit that I've got, which I think is a what is it, a T10? I think it's a T10. Yeah, pretty sure it's a 10. It's quite small. If this is too big, oh no, it is. Look, there you go. T10. So I'm just going to undo this Haldex fluid. It's so slippery. It gets all over everything and you just can't grip the tools. Right, I'm going to take those 2 out. Come on, these are long screws. Oh, I might take these gloves off, you know. Right, quite a long screw. Right, so that should come off now. Okay. Right, so there's these little sort of metal tubes which go into those holes like that, and there is the kind of gauze, which is pretty filthy on both sides actually. You can see a lot of debris in the oil that this pump was trying to pump. Okay, so this one here apparently you don't need to remove. Okay, but I can't resist just removing it and seeing what's underneath. Come on, right, I think this is the actual compressor part of the pump now. I just can't grip anything with these gloves once they get this Haldex fluid on. Right, I'm just going to have to take these off. Take these gloves off, they're just causing trouble. Right, okay, now I don't know if Haldex fluid is corrosive or whatever. I think it's just an oil. Probably shouldn't get it on my hands. Oh right, something's come out. What's this thing? Oh look, it's one of those kind of rotary piston-y things. That's how the pump works. Okay, so I would advise not to undo this screw. Okay, I'm only doing it to show you what's underneath. And there is what looks like the sort of barrel of a, or not the barrel, but the revolving bit of a revolver with the kind of bullets in. is a sort of spinning thing with pistons in, one of which is completely seized, but immediately it started falling apart. There's loads of little springs in here, loads of bits and springs which have just gone everywhere. Okay, so don't remove that third screw unless you really need to. And then in here there is a kind of ball bearing washer thing, and then that is the actual shaft of the pump. Now one of those pistons is jammed and solid, so I don't know if this one would have actually worked very well. I do believe this is a genuine pump. I do think it's genuine, but yeah, well that's what's inside. Okay, now I'm going to take this clutch basket apart. So apparently, get all those bits out of the way. What we do on this is a couple of little tabs. 1, 2, 3 that just need carefully bending back. Right, now you've got to be careful with these because if you do it too many times they're going to break off. In a minute I'll try and... Right, let's see if these come out. Come on. No, they're not coming out. There we go. Right, come on. It's a bit of a fiddly job getting these out. Just going to kind of help it out a little bit. Come on, get past there. There we go. Right, big thick ring at the end. The side with the thinner wear was on the top, and then the more shiny side was down. Okay, and then we've got all of the... Right, let's count these out. It's not too worn, it's more worn than the Gen 3 though. Right, so sintered. Right, there we go. Just shaking all that out, and I'm going to count these. So we've got thick one, sintered. Alright, so that's 1 sintered. 2 with its stainless. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, ending on one of those. So that means there's probably something still in there. There it is. Right, so it was 10 pairs. Now I was told it can be between 11 and 13. I bought, I think, 12. I think I bought 11 sintered and 12 stainless, or vice versa. Okay, there's the bottom one there. So the side with more wear was down, slight wear up. Okay, so that is it. I don't think this thing comes off. That's got, yeah, that's got some roller bearings in it. Right, that is it. My camcorder battery is about to die. Haldex Gen 4, completely dismantled. Much easier than the Gen 3. And what I'm going to do tomorrow is just dismantle that other Gen 4, mix all the parts together, and then build up a new Gen 4 with new parts plus the best parts from the 2 that I've dismantled. So some of these bits need reusing, some will be replaced. Okay, so in the next video I will have dismantled the other one. I'm not going to film that because it'll be exactly the same as this, and then I'm going to be building it up. Okay, so part 5 is construction, not destruction, building up a good Gen 4 Haldex. I'm going to leave it there for today. It's a long day out here in the hot sun, but it's time for a glass of wine. So I'm going to pack all this away and go and edit about 4 hours of footage. I'll try and get it uploaded tonight if I can. Right, that's it. Part 4 done. I hope that was useful. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I'll see you in the next video. Thank you. Bye.